Hello everyone, you're watching Let's Talk About Prepping, and before we get into this video, I want to ask you one thing. Do not click away from this video, dislike this video, or disagree in the comment section unless you can say that you love the two-party system in America, or that you love either the Republican or Democratic Party so much that you don't want to hear any opposition to them. Now that being said, let's talk about why the two-party system sucks and what we as preppers can do about it to affect the 2020 election and perhaps affect the future, because let's face it, the 2020 election, the president, and obviously everything else in the political system sort of affects us as preppers. Now, I'm going to be nonpartisan here because that's the whole point of the movement that I want to talk about. And that movement is the Unity 2020 project. Now, this is not a third party, although many classify it as such. This won't succeed as a third party. Obviously, it's too late in the 2020 election for a third party to come along, get ballot access, and really get in. That's why, for one thing, part of the absurdity of this is that it will need cooperation from either the Libertarian Party or the Green Party or both. Now, why am I even talking to you about this with how impossible this is? Because I believe that it is not impossible. And while everybody throughout this party is very transparent that they are aware of the reality of the situation, both for their party and within the political system that we face, we all understand that not only is 2020 the year where anything besides the norm has a chance of happening, it's also the year where enough people care and enough people are watching that something besides the same old thing might have a chance of happening. What I'm talking about here is the fact that 50% of Americans, give or take, reliably never vote. And while a lot of that does have to do with apathy, I believe, and many agree, that the vast majority of that has to do with disenfranchisement, with people believing not that their vote will be counted in one way or the other, but the entire concept has been co-opted, that the two-party system has ensured that no matter who you choose to vote on, no matter who will actually get in, they will be one wing of the same bird. The old cliche holds true, and I've heard it from everybody from both sides. The fact that between the rest of the 50% of Americans, the vast majority of them pick their party lines based not on their actual true beliefs or who they believe will represent their beliefs, who they really want to support the most, but because it's the closest approximation. It's the best chance that they'll have, or at worst, and perhaps the most common, is the lesser of two evils. And that is perhaps the most shining example of this year, is that for many people, they are choosing the lesser of two evils, although there are people who have surprising enthusiasm in both parties. But this movement is not looking to fight the two parties. This movement is asking patriotic Americans throughout the so-called spectrum to ask themselves, does this represent your beliefs? Do you feel that there is fair representation, that there's any chance that the way that the system runs is going to produce a result that represents what you or the vast majority of Americans want? Because it is true that the vast majority of Americans can agree on the vast majority of subjects. They just want to be left alone to live their life and produce and not harm anybody else. They just want to live the so-called American dream. They want to benefit and not be harmed. These are not necessarily the things that are presented by either of the two parties, but they are things that are believed by people on both sides of the spectrum. And that is why the Unity 2020 project seeks to promote, through whatever means are necessary within the ballot system, an option which actually represents the American people, like is meant to be the case. The Unity 2020 project at this point has already used a nomination process and a ranked choice voting process internally through anybody who has chosen to volunteer and participate in the process. And at this point has chosen to draft Dan Crenshaw and Tulsi Gabbard to, like I said, whatever means are necessary, run in the presidential election. Now, this will mean that either the Libertarian Party or the Green Party, the only two third parties that have gained ballot access, will need to pair with the Unity 2020 project and sacrifice their ballot spot to Tulsi Gabbard and Dan Crenshaw if they admit that they would allow themselves to be drafted as a presidential nominee. Now, this sounds absurd. Many of you will be asking why we're even talking about it. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that this is indeed the year where this could happen. And many in the movement will admit that this will require almost a monumental event to cause even more disenfranchisement with the two parties than already exists. And I will remind you that 50% of Americans reliably do not vote in that two-party system. But this year we are seeing a surprising number of people who have never voted before, who have had total disenfranchisement with the system, wanting to get involved. And the Unity 2020 project has just as many people coming from that disenfranchised party as people coming pretty much equally from the two other parties. I believe that this is the year where we may see a huge chunk of that population that has never voted coming out of the woodwork to support any party. Even I've heard all over the internet a potted plant over the two other options. Now, one of the beautiful things about Unity 2020 that is different than other third-party options is that they have a kill switch mechanism installed into it. Because of some of the things, some of the options afforded to us because of the modern era, they are able to track their groundswell, their strong support base, through digital means, through people like myself who have emailed pledging their support for this concept. The beautiful part about this is that running right up till the days leading the election, you are able to say that if they believe, almost beyond a certainty of a doubt, that they can win the election, they will ask you to vote. But if they believe that they cannot, beyond a shadow of a doubt, then they will tell you to go and spend your vote where you believe it is best spent. And this eliminates the argument that you will allow the lesser of two evils to gain prominence because you've allowed your vote to be wasted. You will have the option of voting for Trump or voting for Biden or voting for Joe or whoever you like if the Unity 2020 project says we're not going to be able to win it, but let's keep pushing for next time around. And that's the other part that's most important about this, is that no matter what happens this year, we need to start looking at some option besides the same old, because no matter what you think about this year, whether Trump gets in and you love that, he can't run again. And if Biden gets in and you love that, I don't know that Trump's going to stop and not come back in 2024. And you're just going to have to worry about somebody else coming along. We need to start looking at some option that is not just part of this two-party system, something that actually at least tries to say, all right, who do you want? Because part of the beautiful part about this Unity 2020 project is it gives you the option to go into the ballot booth, and rather than checking the box for the lesser of two evils, you can actually imagine who, if you chose to just be the president tomorrow, regardless of everyone else's vote, you were the one choosing it, that you can at least have the option to be proud of that, to not feel like you're being funneled into two choices. Because, like it or not, at the end of the day, I think most people can agree that they can think of someone who might be better to be president in any of the elections throughout the past than the options that they were given. That just doesn't sound like fair representation to me. Anyways, I'm not trying to convince you guys about something. I'm actually asking you what you think, because this will never work unless we all can start to agree that something like this needs to happen. And far from just trying to spend my time trying to convince you guys to vote for something this year, it's far more important that we start to get a groundswell of the idea that we can do something, that we are indeed, as cliche as it is, the people that we have been waiting for to start something like this, that it won't happen unless we all come out and say, yes, this is what we want. We want something besides the same old. We want something that will actually at least have a chance of representing us. We want to know that the people in there at least have a chance of pulling the oars for both sides and not having this recursive game of just spinning in circles in one direction or the other every 4 or 8 years. This is a chance for us to actually start working towards, if not this year, a future where we can actually individually truly think that our wants are at least having a chance of being represented. Anyways, I hope that's interesting. Love to hear back what you guys have to say about this. And if you want to hear anything more about it, I'll link some videos down below, some links to articlesofunity.org or the YouTube channel, so that you can watch some of the people who have started this and who are supporting it to try to save our republic. Anyways, hope you're all doing well. Hope to hear back from you. And everybody, stay safe out there.